Previously on Coach's Corner.
I think a lot of times people confuse that initial response in recognizing their emotions with this is just who I am.
You didn't do this, and you didn't do that, and you didn't do this. And
we learn how to respond and we learn about emotions from all of these people. You say something and they come back with you with an emotional response that you know good and well would get their lips slapped off their face like Daffy Duck.
What type of model did they have from a parental standpoint? But when we're trying to change, we give ourselves a whole lot of grace. In fact, we would give ourselves way more grace than we give the other person that actually did the exact same thing that we did.
Starts with a T and ends with a Y. Therapy. Sometimes you need to just go and get a therapist.
There's a lot of people that walk around thinking they got it together, but when you look at them, they ain't got it together. I will never have the behavioral response if I don't have the subjective opinion about the thing.
Walking away is hard, and having to deal with yourself after you walk away from a fight is hard too. When you like, man, I wanted to give it to that dude or that person, and walk away, you feel embarrassed, you feel weak, you feel less of a man sometimes. Now, we talking about in the streets. I ain't even going to talk about in our own homes.
Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Coach's Corner. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach.
And I am the Uncle Junior, and I go by the Consistency Coach.
And we are your coaches for Coach's Corner. Listen, as always, we look forward to these conversations. So like I tend to say every week, if you are here and you're going to just soak up this information and then just continue doing the exact same thing you have been doing prior to this conversation, and this is not the place for you. However, if you are here and you're looking to make change, if you're looking to grow and do better for yourself, for your loved ones, for your family, for your community, and looking for the best version of what life has to offer you, then you are in the right place and the right time. You were meant to be seated in that chair, looking at that screen so that you can hear these voices. And as we look forward to reading your messages as it come through during this conversation. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by your emotions, unsure of how to navigate the storm within? If so, you're not alone. Many of us struggle with understanding and managing our emotions, especially during turbulent times. In today's episode of Coach's Corner, we're diving deep into the topic of becoming emotionally unshakable. Inspired by Robert Greene's The Laws of Human Nature, we'll explore practical strategies to help you understand the root of your emotional reactions, recognize triggers and patterns, transform emotional challenges into opportunities, build resiliency, and thrive even in the midst of emotional turmoil. We aim to share profound insights and personal experiences, providing you with valuable tools to navigate your inner world and achieve greater success and fulfillment. Don't forget to check out the show notes for a free downloadable to help you apply these concepts in your life. Join us for an enlightening conversation that promises to equip you with the answers and strategies you've been searching for. So let's get it started. In what ways can recognizing our emotional triggers improve our professional performance and decision-making processes?
Okay, well, since we're talking about professional,
No, you don't have to leave it professional.
When we can, I guess it's almost like self-regulation. When we can be faced with something at work or in our professional or personal life, and instead of us getting triggered, we can have a different response to it. I think it helps us make better decisions. So an example may be the boss comes in, excuse me, the boss comes in and say, hey, look, I'm tired of this. Y'all been leaving this place like this, yada, yada, yada. He comes down with a whole list of stuff, blah, blah, blah. you can initially be like, darn, he comes down all bunch of stuff that you guys are not doing right. Right. Where your response can be like, oh man, forget this company and I forget him too. I don't like none of that stuff. Right. That can be that could be you being triggered for who knows reason. Maybe you don't like people talking to you a certain way. Maybe you felt like you were doing what you were supposed to do and he's calling everybody out and they don't have anything to do with you for whatever reason. When when a situation or something like that happens and then you decide how you respond to that, right? So if you can respond to that in a healthy way, be like, dang, you know what? Maybe we ain't been pulling our weight around here. You know what I mean? What am I doing? What am I not doing? And then that may help you make better decisions going forward, right? So if he's saying, well, hey, you keep taking too long at your breaks, and people are doing this too long, whatever like this. Now you can go back, self-reflect again, look at yourself and say, okay, well, where am I not cutting the mustard? All right, you know what? I'm gonna make sure I'm back from my break on time. You know what I mean? So just that one decision that you make by being coming back to break on time is can help you be a better can help your professional performance and your evaluations and all of those things just while you're at work. You become a better employee. You know what I'm saying? So um yeah, that's what I want to start with.
I like this, and I literally just thought of something a few seconds ago, and I wish I
Hmm.
had did this earlier, but I'm gonna do it now. I want to look at this from twofold. First and foremost, in recognizing my emotional triggers, the first thing I go back and understand the process of emotions. Right. I'm gonna take this book and I'm gonna create an L. I just want don't look at the entire book, just look at the outline of the book. Notice it forms like a L. The the top to bottom part, that's you, right? This is the emotions of you, right? I'm doing this. I've got to put in the screen. I'm doing this from head to toe. So this is you. This is you emotionally. This is your feelings. So, like, remember, from the subjective understanding of the thing to the physiological expression to the behavioral expression to the expression of how what it's doing to you. So I feel like when you do this thing, blah 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 blah. Okay, that's the best way I can help continue to clear it up, because in the depiction of this question, you can literally see it unfold. So as an employee, when I go to Mr. Martin and I say, Mr. Martin, I feel like, well, what I'm saying is within me, whenever you do this thing, it causes this thing in me. So I feel like whenever you do this, you don't really consider the second and third order effects because it is actually affecting me. You see what I'm saying? You just do this without any thoughts. You just carry on as though we're going to continue to clean up your mess. And you're taking us for granted because I'm feeling it right here. That's what we're saying here. So, for me, internally, when it comes down to recognizing my emotional triggers, first and foremost, I slow down the process of the thought. Because if I continue the process of the thought, it works its way down. So I slow down the process of the thought. I think about the thought. Why did the thought come to me? Why do I think this about Mr. Martin? Blah, 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 this, that, and the third. So now in processing the thought, I can consider something else, and we'll get into that here in a second. So now I can think more rationally, and I prevent it from seeping deep into me to cause a physiological response. If I don't do that, then I'm gonna go to Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin, whenever you do this thing right here, I feel like you ain't got none of us in your mind, and you're just living in the world by yourself, and you're just saying we're gonna pick up the pieces. So when I can do that, not only can I make a more accurate decision to where, yeah, if I do that, I may kind of irritate Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin looking at me side eye for the rest of the month, right? No, I saw your time card. No, I'm just saying though. But here's the here's the other side to it. I want everybody to listen closely to this, because if you listen closely to it, you probably started doing some lateral thinking already, because this is the way that you can prevent from making impulse purchases. Sales 101 is to cause emotional triggers. So if I can trigger you by telling you, say, hey, this thing is awesome and it's hot outside and you see all kind of nice, cool sweat dripping off the side of it, and it keeps your colds cold and it keeps your hots hot. You got to have it. You don't want to miss out. So notice I'm using all the tricks. I'm getting you. I'm looking. It looks good enough, right, to keep your stuff cold and keep your other stuff hot, right? I'm hitting you with the fear of missing out. I'm hitting you with all the triggers. So now, only thing left is for you to just click that button below and buy it right now. Man, I can't miss this. Click up, and I got it. You see what I'm saying? Slow down.
Omo.
Think about it. That's it. FOMO. Slow down. Think about it. Process it. Now you're slowing it down because once it hits here, it's too late. It's almost too late once it hits here. Slow down, think about it, process. How does it serve my purpose? If it doesn't serve my purpose, I don't pull the trigger. It's just that simple. And I wanted to break it down like that because, again, as people are listening to me, we just talked about sin management. People listening to me, we just increase our financial status just by that one little thing. If people listen to me, we just improve relationships with this little simple conversation. We just improve your marketability in the job market. We just like so many things improve just by this one thing right here.
Sound like a micro adjustment to me.
It is definitely a micro adjustment. Good
Did a
call.
show on that, didn't we?
We actually did. Go back and look at
Yeah.
micro
Yeah,
adjustment.
go back and look at the micro adjustment show.
Very good, good fellow. Very good. So now we got to look at kind of transforming these things because I like what you talked about in the beginning. Your backyard is transforming. It's coming
Yeah.
together, right? Transforming emotional challenges into opportunities. So now I've already identified some of the things what Mr. Martin got going on the in the job site. I don't really like it, but you know what? I got it. So I got to slow down and think about it. So, what can emotional challenges teach us about ourselves and our capacities?
I would tell you one, patience, right? I think one thing it can really teach us is, and there's a whole bunch of different ones, but I think with the emotional challenge, because like we were talking about taking that extra second, self reflecting, thinking about what we're going to say before we say it, blah blah blah. Those things out of all of that comes a certain level, comes a certain amount of patience, right? So you have to be prepared to say, you know what, when coach says something or when somebody says something, I have to be patient. I have to think about what I said, form a sentence, and then spit out of my mouth, not just trigger response. I have to think about it, then respond. So I think, when what can emotional challenges teach us about ourselves, I think it can teach us our level of patience, you know, and when we are triggered, that's a great opportunity to look at and see, like you said, check your pulse. And a lot of times when we trigger, that's the best time because we don't know when we're over something until we put in the situation. So we can say all the time, like, I don't know, I'm about to go here. But that's I look forward to that. Like we talked about obstacles, like on empowering hearts of men. So when man, I didn't get so far off now and I forgot where I was going. Oh, I should have stayed on task.
Hey, you
Yeah,
good? Take your time. Take your time.
I can't remember, man. It'll come back to me though.
All right. Well, let me kind of jump in, and if you
Yeah.
remember, by all means, just chime
All
in.
right.
Um, I like the fact that you started off with patience,
Mm,
because my emotional triggers can teach me that I don't have patience.
mm-hmm.
It can teach me that I may have patience for some things, but I don't have patience for other things. It can actually teach me that I'm not as far along as I thought I was. It can teach me that whenever this thing presents itself in this particular fashion, in this particular situation, I don't like it. Not only do I don't like it, I think everybody around me need to feel that I don't like it. And so part of that could actually show me that maybe the problem first is that there's something tied to that particular thing that triggers me. What is that? I need to analyze that and understand that as well. But then it also shows me that I got to make everybody feel that I didn't like it. So there's two things I need to see here. Why do I think everybody need to feel how I feel? Why do I think I need to affect everybody by the way I feel? Why do I think I need to stand before you with this look on my face to let you know that I don't like it? I'm not in a good place. I don't really like the way we vibing right now. Well, part of the fact that I don't like the way we vibing, it might be because of me, not you. Like Mr. Martin didn't do nothing different. You know what I'm saying? But maybe it's just that he got on the what is that brown? That's a brown hat. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He got the brown hat on today. I don't like that color. I told him before that color don't work, but he's still wearing that color. So I'm mad that he didn't listen to me. Well, who elevated you to the position of authority to believe that your words needed to be implemented when you said it? Maybe I need to understand that that's where the problem lies, not the fact that he exercised his own ability to think and made an adult decision. Like when we really stop and think about some of the things we get mad at, it's really more of some type of internal arrogance that we never dealt with. So my emotional challenges teach me a lot about me. I might still be behaving like a child in my adult body. I believe that there's a child in all of us, but that child needs to be tamed. There's a time and a space for that child to come out. But a lot of times we want the child to hang out with us constantly throughout the day. Why? Because the child throws temper tantrums whenever it doesn't get his way. The adult wants to make adult decisions while the child throws temper tantrums. And we think we're going to walk side by side and experience the best of what life has to offer. No, it doesn't work that way. You have a responsibility for you and that child in you. So I want to start there and pause just to see if you had that thought come back to you.
Not at all, man. I started listening to what you were saying, then I was like, man, I just let it go.
Okay. But I will add to it. It also shows me the container that I have as it pertains to certain things. You started mentioning patience, and I'm glad you said that because it may show me that I got this much patience for loud noise, but I got this much patience for people with problems. So now I have to do some self assessment. That's my work to do. I can still talk to the people with loud noise. Say, hey, quiet down just a little bit. I ain't got to get irate with them. If I'm getting irate with them, that's something different. If I'm triggered, that's a whole nother ball of wax. But I don't have to be triggered. I can just say, hey, can y'all just quiet down just a little bit?
Yeah.
And then believe they are adults to say, no, we're good. Leave us alone. And be okay if they say that. See that's the thing that we get to. A lot of times we don't believe that the other people are just as adults as we are. So we ask questions and we only have one answer in mind. And if you don't give me the answer that I thought that you're supposed to give me, now I'm upset. I'm triggered. I'm mad. For what?
Yeah.
So a
Yeah,
lot of yeah, go ahead.
I think you said it, but I think it teaches us where we are with whatever thing it is right now. Like you said, I'm right here when it comes to my patients in this area. I'm right here when it comes to my patients in this area. So that gives us a starting point for growth, right?
Mhm.
I know that, you know what, I am a whole lot better in patience when I talk to a coach, but whenever I talk to my wife, it's like I have a short fuse. So why is it that I can talk to coach and not be triggered and upset, but when I talk to my wife, I'm triggered up and
Right.
upset? So it gives you a starting point and it lets you know, okay, well, this is an area in my life where I need to have some growth. And
Mhm.
now you can start working on that area. So just to add to, what you were saying about that.
No, no, you're good because the question that I will always ask, like, who taught you that? Where did you learn
Hmm.
that from? Where did you learn that men are supposed to be short patient with their wife,
Yeah.
but they can exercise a lot of patience with
Yeah.
people in the street? And then
Hmm.
unfortunately, you'll find that happens a lot. You got
Hmm.
all of the patients at work. You are the model employee. Like everybody calls you. You're the voice of reason. Like you're
Hmm.
such a swell guy and all this other great stuff. But then you go home and kick the dog and yell at your wife and all kind of that. Wait, hold on. What happened to all those patients you had? Like when did
Hmm.
it change? Why are you
Yeah.
code switching? That
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. Should you not have as much, if not more, patience at
Hmm.
home than you have at work? Why are you not the same person?
I don't get that.
So your emotional triggers can really reveal who you are and the things you need to work on, like Mr. Martin just said.
bro, same thing. You spoke on the guys. I'm hit on the women. Don't get mad at me, folks. But let's be honest. So we got some people out there, and they at work, do everything they supposed to do. Yes, boss. No, yes, sir, boss. I got it. Hey, you need to do this. Work overtime, late, come in early, no matter what. They get their check. Then they go home. I ain't doing that. I ain't listening to this joker. What? So just saying that may be an area of your life where you can find some growth. Why is it that I can respect my boss at work, even if he's disrespectful? But why is it I can come home and I cannot respect this person who's the head of my house? So put a pin in that conversation too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I love it. I love it. Okay, moving on because now because we done asked the why, now we got to kind of look at making the adjustment. So how
Ooh.
can we reframe emotional challenges as opportunities for growth and development? I think I keep putting you on the spot. Going first, I'm gonna go. If you don't mind, I go first on this
Oh man. Oh man. I was about to shout you out. I was going right with mindset. But go ahead.
Yeah, it's I think I got to go back to an old saying: when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And so maybe the reason why I am short patient with noise is because when I was growing up, that's kind of like what my environment was. Nobody wanted a lot of noise in their environment. So when I came home and I wanted to play, be quiet, all that other great stuff. So it's a learned behavior. So instead of viewing this as noise, I need to reframe it and view it as something different. They're expressing themselves. That's their creative nature. So instead of now repelling the thing and making it sound like to me like somebody taking their fingernails and raking it across chalkboard, why don't I just go see what they're doing? Become curious about what they're doing. And then if I become curious about what they're doing, I might learn something. They might be up there jamming, on the bass guitar, bro. They got the pianos and all that. I might like it if I go be around it. But sometimes we have a hard time liking stuff because we're mentally rejecting it. And when you mentally reject a thing, you don't necessarily open yourself up to explore the thing. So I have to reframe it. I have to call it something different. I have to put it in a different box so it looks different. It's just like taking a picture that you have on a wall that you didn't purchase a frame for, and then you go buy a $200 frame, and you got a nice frame, and it got the mat and all that stuff. And you take that same dry picture and put in that frame, and it's beautiful now. And you hang it up, and that's what we got to do. Like that letter that comes in the mail from the IRS that I talk about so much, because people like me always get contacted by the IRS, right? Maybe it's not that they write me a letter saying I owe you that that I owe them some money. Maybe that letter is saying, "Hey, you're doing such a wonderful job. So you're doing such a wonderful job. You overpaid us last year. Here's a check for the money that you paid us." Now you and I both know that's probably not going to happen, right? But I'm just saying it could happen.
Yeah.
So I need to reframe it in my mind so I don't feel a particular way about that envelope. Whether it happens or not, I don't own that part of it, but it's a possibility that it can. And so I always look for the silver lining, like we talked about a few weeks ago. I always look for the silver lining in every situation because I don't want this letter to become an obstacle to my physical health. And I'm gonna pause right there.
Man, you said a whole you was on it. So I can't take anything away. I'm just gonna add to what you were saying. And I wrote down like the mindset. So how can we reframe emotional challenges as opportunities for growth and development? Is like you said, is reframing, but what are reframing? We're looking at um this can be a valuable learning experience. This is something I can get out of the situation. I know I don't want to do whatever it is I'm supposed to do, or this or that, whatever the emotional challenge is, right? There's an opportunity that you can learn. So now when you look at it as, hey, this is an opportunity for me to learn versus something else. So, we think about relationships all the time, right? We talk about relationships. So in a relationship, someone brings something up in the relationship saying, hey, look, in our relationship, because remember, the relationship is the most important person in the relationship. So in our relationship, this is the problem, right? We need to come up with the solution, right? So instead of you saying, "Why he always got to say something to me? I can't do nothing right." Look, this is an opportunity for the relationship to get better. Like, don't look at it as he is trying to fix you or change you. No, what is happening is someone brought something up in a relationship and they feel like, or they think that whatever we change or whatever challenge it is, if we work on it, the relationship is going to be better. So when we can look at that as, hey, he's trying to work on relationships so we can be better. She's brought this up because she wants the relationship to be better. Look at it that way versus the opposite way. And I think that right there, just looking at it, and like you said, this is just reframing. You know what I mean? And I think that right there can help growth, it can help development, it can help your relationship, it can make you help you better even as a person. You know, it help you from walking on eggshells every time you're trying to have a conversation. Because let's be honest, part of the reason why we don't always start having the hard conversation is because of the the backblast that someone feels like they're going to get even if they bring it up. Hey, we ain't cutting the mustard over here. You said you was going to do this, you ain't doing it. I'm not, it's not a personal attack on you. This is an agreement. When you do this, it's going to help our relationship. When you're not holding up your end of the bargain. You know, so just look at it as an opportunity and someone is coming in really the intent is to try to help the relationship, not to get on your feelings or to call you out.
Absolutely. I love that. Um, it's like it's funny. It's like if you can have a conversation with your partner, but your partner not be in the room, and relationship has to answer for your partner, and you'd be like, "So, what would you have me to do?"
Mm-hmm.
So, relationship, huh? What do I need to do? Better than what you're doing right now? What does that really? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like it's funny. You know, I do that jokingly, but it's really hilarious because at
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, I have a thing that I really believe is true. Your emotions will always show up at the level of your ego. So if you ever want to regulate your emotions, crush your ego. So when I ask relationship that question, relationship gonna always respond in relation to my ego, because your ego is the only causation of problems within relationship. Even if and you know just talking about, even if he does something that he felt was right, the only reason I think is wrong is because my ego is standing in between of us right now. So ego, get out of the way, move, get out of the way. And maybe if I become curious about what he did, then maybe I can learn the reason why he did. And if I do that first, then I can avoid the emotional responsibility behind it. But when ego is here, ego will say, he's wrong, get him. And it always happens that way. Always.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, man. Okay. So we're moving forward. We're
Yeah,
doing good.
man.
We appreciate you guys hanging in there. Building emotional resilience. Now we kind of touched on resilience a few times, and definitely doing um, the uh, the object conversation, overcoming objects. So, what are the defining traits of emotionally resilient people, and how can we cultivate these qualities in ourselves?
Um, I'm going to start by saying I think that people who have who are very resilient, emotionally resilient people, I think they have a high level of self awareness, and they do a lot of times self reflecting or even learning about themselves, and they grow a lot.
Hmm.
I think they can look at their lives at one stage and go back and reflect and tell you. some of the things that they did wrong at 20, at 25, at 30, something like that. So I think to start off with, I think that these people have a lot of self-awareness. And I think that like I said, they spend a lot of time in whatever you want to call it, self learning about self, building self. Like seem like a lot of time has been spent on development and working on self. And I just think that and learning, learning and applying lessons, applying lessons learned from past experience as well. So I think all of these help make an emotionally resilient person. When we've been through Iraq a couple of times, right? Can be very stressful. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of moving parts. You still have your family at home. You're really nothing more than a paycheck. The wife is taking care of everything. She calls you if there's a problem, can't really do anything about it. Y'all get in an argument. She decided to hang up the phone on you. It ain't nothing you can do about it because we went back in the day before we had, you know, technology like this, you know. So me and Coach, we're a little silver around the face, not gray. Silver is wisdom, gray is for old people. So
Absolutely.
we silver around here. So I just
Exactly.
think, going through these different things and doing all of those can kind of help you make a more resilient person. Um how can we cultivate them? Just spend more time being self-aware and learning about yourself. Um Spending time growing, learning. What can I do to be a better person? How can I be a better communicator? How can I be a better effective communicator? How can I, read John Maxwell books, watch podcasts? All these different things are good ways to get information into your brain where you can help be, a little more emotionally resilient.
I like your response. I love your response. When I look at this question, it puts me in the mindset of community because you hear it and people will say it like, you know, if you want to learn a thing, go study from the person that you want to learn from, right? Um, and I think that's a way of doing a thing, especially a thing that is requiring of a skill. But I like to go back to the beginning because the defining traits of emotionally resilient people, to me, initial thought is stoicism, right? Being stoic. But when a lot of people hear the term stoic, they think that stoicism means void of emotion, but that's not it. That's not what it means. It means that that person has the ability to go through a thing, deal with the thing, but you don't see the emotional frustration, pain, and all of that stuff on that person's face. They're not expressing the emotions of the thing that they're going through. It's really more biblical in nature than what we give ourselves credit for because the Bible tells us that when you fast, people on the outside should not know that you're fasting. So I think a lot of times when we look at it, like what does stoicism look like? A person who is in control of themselves from a mental, psychological, and emotional standpoint. A person who do not lose their cool whenever the stakes are high. A person who takes their time and makes well calculated decisions. Um, and when you look at those three things combined together, it really makes a lot of sense that most people who fall within this category seem to be more senior than they are more junior because they're more mature as it pertains to life. They've been through some things, they've experienced some things, and they learned some lessons from their experiences. But I also believe that we don't have to wait until we get to the age of seniority to learn the lessons that someone else learned from experience, especially if someone else who learned it from experience has a desire to share it. So, how do we cultivate these qualities? Learn from the person who's been through life to such a degree that they have a desire to share how they got to that build that area of emotional stability. It's kind of like what the gray faces. I'm sorry, the silver faces come from. Like the silver faces have a desire to share. We have a desire to teach, especially the younger generation. I'm an advocate um, to where our generation should be teaching from the pot of lessons learned, not from the pot of perfected lessons. And a lot of times, what we tend to do is we teach from the pot of perfected lessons as opposed to teaching from the pot of lessons learned. We made some mistakes. Own it. Be okay with that. Say, hey, man, I didn't know what it like. I had no idea what fatherhood was all about when I first became a father. However, I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made. So let me share this with you. And if you use it, great. If you don't use it, great. I did my part. And it's not that I don't care about your outcome. I care about your outcome. That's why I want you to be more equipped than what I was when I was your age. And I think in that notion, having the ability to having the desire to help someone be better than you, than better than what you were when you were their age, right? Not better than you, but better than what you were when you were their age. Better equipped, that is. Having more tools, having the understanding on how to put certain things to practice. I think when we get to the point of wanting to do that, desiring to do that, then I think that's when they'll get to the point of listening.
Man, I got a follow on question for you, but I can't remember my guy. So give me a second. Well, not give me a second. I want you to answer first. Because I gotta look up the movie. When it comes to resilience, I think sometimes what we need to do to connect the dots, at least for me, is sometimes if we can see ourselves in someone famous or a movie, or sometimes I think sometimes bridging or helping that connection sometimes helps. So, with that being said, do you see like any movies, any famous people, somebody that people can go back to and be like, look, that's a very resilient person right there. So, like, just off the top of your head, any movies or anything like that where somebody has been very, very resilient. And then while you doing that, I'm gonna find mine because
I
I
think,
know it. I just watched the movie like last week,
mhm.
and so I gotta figure it out.
I think to start off, I give you two to give you time.
Hmm.
Start off with, I would say, a movie that really depicts a large amount of resiliency is the Pursuit of, I think it's Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith. I
Mm,
think that's the name of it.
yeah,
Um, and
with
if
the
you know,
son and the
yeah,
wife who's selling
absolutely.
the
Where he's
things.
selling
Yeah.
the machine, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That movie is definitely a movie to where you see a lot of resiliency that he had to go through. You see this grown man trying crying because he is trying to pursue his dream. He is trying to provide for his son. He is destined to get this job, and so forth and so on. And he literally stops at nothing to get there. The one person though, changing gears from the movie to an individual, Samuel L. Jackson. I
Mm.
think when you go back and you study the Samuel L. Jackson story, seeing where he came from to where he is now, like I don't think he really gets enough credit for being resilient. I don't think he gets enough credit for being that voice that can actually instruct young people who start off in a position to where they're behind the power curve and they have an addiction, a strong addiction to a thing that changes their psychological capacity in every moment, their physiological being, so forth and so on. And then to move himself out of that into where he is right now, to being one of the actors that have, I think between him and John Malkovich, I think his name, like they got so many movies out there, it's not even funny. So yeah, just those two, man. The Pursuit of Happiness and Samuel L. Jackson.
Man, I got mine. I just watched it. Men of Honor with Cuba Gooden Jr. and Robert De Niro.
Cookie.
It- Cookie, yeah. That dude's quest to be a Navy SEAL, I mean, be a Navy diver was, I mean, that Joker was resilient. Like, he did not give up. He was like, no matter what. I mean, hurt leg and all of that stuff, you know? So, it was, which is crazy because like I said, I just think sometimes being able to connect a movie or something like that, because something, we talk about resiliency and these different things, but sometimes a movie can sometimes show it sometimes better than people can explain it. Not that either one of us did a horrible job of explaining anything, but just saying sometimes a movie or a picture of somebody, even if it is fictional. Rocky was fictional. You know how many great lessons came out of the Rocky movies? This dude was resilient too. You know what I'm saying? Like, he dealt with some stuff, you know what I mean? To deal with Paulie, spend
Yeah.
up all the money and stuff over and over.
And if you
Oh,
ever like, so that's actually a true story, by the way, Men of Honor.
yeah.
Uh, but if you haven't seen it, first of all, it's a good movie. But
Mhm.
you gotta realize that during the time that Cuba Gooding Jr. wanted to be a naval diver, um, racism was still a thing,
Mhm.
and Robert De Niro, like, no, he wasn't having it. So
Nope.
he's like, "You're not going to be a diver here," and so he had to control himself emotionally. You got to think about it, right? He had to become emotionally resilient because every day he knew what he's going to encounter, and he kept going back to it. So I
Mhm.
like the fact that you brought that to the table, man.
Yeah.
Great, great movie.
Good movies.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good movies.
Okay, what is the next question? Okay, what effective strategies can we implement to sustain emotional resilience during extended periods of stress or uncertainty? Do you want me to go first on that one? Or you want to take that one?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Avoid complacency. That's what I would say. And what I mean when I say that, I think sometimes we get to a certain point and we say, "Okay, I'm good. I've arrived. I'm good now." But I think when we choose complacency, what ends up happening is that life will present something to you that show you that complacency never should have been an option. So one of the most effective strategies that we can choose is to always seek to move outside of your comfort zone. So now I am constantly growing. I am reading. I am studying. I am asking questions. Like, I am growing within the space of that because I don't ever want to get to the point that where what I knew back in 2010 becomes the tip of the spear of the lessons that I know right now. So I am constantly moving to continue to grow in emotional resiliency. So now, what does that mean? I am focused on mindfulness so that my mind can expand and grow and things of that nature. So the thing that may have triggered me 2 years ago does not trigger me this year. The thing that triggered me last year does not trigger me this year. So growing here so that I can prevent things from seeping down into here. So continuing to do that constantly and moving and putting myself in new situations. I'm I know we talked about the movie and I mentioned the fact that racism was still a thing, but if like I think we got to realize some things. I'm just being transparent. If somebody being a racist triggers you today, it probably should not trigger you next week. You know what I'm saying? Like, do better. Like, is at some point, it's not the fact that racism is a problem. It's the fact that, and I'm saying it from a personal perspective. I'm not saying that racism is not wrong. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. At some point in your life, when you know a thing exists, that thing should not be a trigger for you the entirety of your life. Do better. If you know it's out there, if you know people do it, if you already know those things exist, I have to get to the point to where just because you view me through the lens of the color of my skin, okay, that's fine. That's your choice. You don't want to touch it because I touch. Okay, that's fine. That's all right. It doesn't. It should not move you at a certain point. Like, I'm 50 years old. If I am still moved by the fact that there are some people out there who still view us as like the scum of the earth, that's their choice. It doesn't shake me. It doesn't move me. Now, as long as they don't put their hands on me, we're okay, right? But then again, even if that's being the case, I like the lesson I learned years ago. I choose to walk away. So I think we have to start imagining, what would I do if this? What would I do if that? Like, what's the worst thing that you can imagine? Look at movies like Garfield just talked about, and imagine if that person was you. Imagine if Cookie was you. Imagine if, and I can't remember his name, right? Imagine if you being Will Smith in The Pursuit of Happiness. Imagine if that was you.
Mhm.
Imagine if you was Jesus on the cross. Imagine if that was you. Like, what would you do? How would you feel? How would you regulate yourself to try to persevere through? I think that is, in my opinion, one of the most effective strategies. We can imagineer ourselves out of the obstacle that can present itself before it even present itself to be an obstacle.
Man, you had some great points in there. Man, that's why sometimes I'm only going first because I got to follow all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? But well, I think that we're looking at effective strategies. Well, first of all, one of the things that's key to point out is periods of stress or uncertainty, right? So I think that's when you really need to focus in on your self care, right? Stress. So the last thing you want to do is to add on a bunch more stress by not sleeping good. You know what I mean? So you need to make sure your sleeping is good, your health, your exercise, all of those different things. And then another thing that I think is really key is during these periods of stress or uncertainty is put down, make sure that your goals are realistic. Whatever these goals are, whether they're in fitness, whether they're in health, whether they're in your personal life, whether they're professional, whatever it is that you're going through during this extended period of stress or uncertainty, make sure that those goals are written in a certain way to where they can be achieved, but they're not causing and adding more stress onto whatever it is you already have going on. So again, this for me is really short and sweet and to the point. And again, it is work on your mental, work on your physical, work on self-care, and make sure that the goals and the stuff that you put down are not too overwhelming, as that they're going to add on to more stress in your life.
Absolutely. I love it. Okay. Last section, you guys will be happy to understand that. Navigating and thriving in emotional turmoil. So, that said, and I know I kind of talked about some things, and you guys probably heard it a few seconds ago, heard what Mr. Martin said. That brings into the notion of detachment. So, how does detachment aid in managing emotional upheavals, and what methods can we use to practice healthy detachment without becoming emotionally numb? Now, I just gave a perfect example of detachment. But, young sir, what say ye?
So when I'm looking at detachment, I'm looking at people being in a. I'm just taking a boy girl relationship, man woman relationship, right? And then someone either I'm looking at a breakup, right? So when I'm seeing this, I'm looking at two people, a man and a woman, and then now there's a breakup. So that's kind of how I'm going to be answering this question because that's how I see this question. Um, so I think sometimes when we have breakup, there's still an attachment and there is still somebody who may want some level of closure, right? And I think those things, looking for closure, my personal opinion, is a waste of time. I don't need closure from somebody to move on with my life. I mean, the fact that we ain't together no more is closure. I don't need your opinion or the reason why you felt like you didn't want to be in this relationship no more, or anything like that. That is irrelevant. It's beside the point. And if we ain't together, we used to be good and we ain't together no more, um how content or how much do I believe anything that's come out of your mouth anyway? So
Mm,
for me, I am not a firm believer that people need to be go out and seeking and looking for this thing called closure when the relationship is over. I think you just pick up whatever you got and keep it moving. But again, that's my opinion. And like you have said many times, I am the expert. Uh, um, the expert. What is it? Of my own opinion. Say it one more time. Say my disclaimer.
we are the subject matter experts of our own opinions.
There you go. I'm the subject matter expert of my own opinion. So that's me. But I think sometimes what happens is when you're detaching from anything, you have to understand that, especially if that thing is gone, that it is gone and that is okay. And that is just one part of your life where this thing may be detached from. Now, I know I said a relationship, but it could be a job, it could be a relationship you have with another person or anything like that. Um, But I think that, when we detach and you make it healthy, I think one thing you need to think about is that you're not perfect. And the reason why this relationship, whatever is detached, maybe I had something to do with it as well. So
Mm.
I think that when we're looking at the boy girl relationship, when we're looking at marriages, I told my wife earlier today, you know what I mean? That I was part of the problem in my first relationship, in my first marriage for 19 years. That is great. You have to do that. You know what I mean? There is no way in the world that we was married for 19 years and every single thing was her fault. That is BS. And everybody in here, in their right mind, everybody looking at this, know that that ain't the truth. It ain't never just one person, right? So I had to go back and look at, okay, well, what did you do wrong?
Yeah.
Again, were you always the kindest husband? Did you always come home on time? Did you always do this, do this? No, you didn't. You were disrespectful. You raised your voice. You yelled. You know what I mean? You walked out of the house. You had certain things that you did too. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? So that helped me manage, certain things while we were going through things, the divorce and stuff like that. But I think that, when you detach, you have to understand that that thing is okay. There is a healing period, there's time, there are different things, but emotionally, just like everything else, everything that you have been through.
But I feel like if you just do what I want you to do, everything will be all right.
Well, feelings change on a daily basis,
I
on
said
a
that
minute
joke
by
because
minute
somebody
basis.
actually
I
said that one
know.
time before. Um, I'm with you on the closure thing. There's no such thing as
Yeah.
closure.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna say it like this, and I think this is the best way to answer this question because a lot of times we confuse the term empathy, and we like to talk about empathy, and some people, even to the point where some of us will call ourselves an empath. Um,
Let me mute my mic.
Stop it, man! Stop it. I'm not. I don't want whatever. I don't want anybody to take what I'm about to say the wrong way. Um, you ain't that special. Let me start there. No one person is more special than the other. So you don't have no special techniques, no special gifts, no none of that stuff. Like whatever you have, it has been given to you for everyone else, not to make you stand on the mountaintop. So when we start talking about detachment and we start talking about empathy and all this other great stuff, one of the things that we need to understand is that you can feel however you want to feel. I don't have to own one version of it. It's yours. It's your feelings. Like they're yours. I want to start there. If I take it from you and own it, that's because I chose to. But at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, I'm probably about to learn that I made a bad decision. You should never own how another person feels. However they feel, that's them. Remember, the emotions, right? The subjective perspective, the physiological expression, then the behavioral expression, and then the feelings is I feel that, right? So now when they express I feel that, I don't need to own that you feel that. That's your part of it. And what you feel does not automatically depict that what I'm doing is wrong. So now I appreciate you sharing how you feel, but let's get past that. Let's talk facts. Because if we can talk the facts, then the facts will help me to understand what I need to compare it to so that we collectively can ascertain whether or not what I did was wrong. If we can do that, then that helps us move forward. Once I own how you feel, I automatically am now puppeted to the point to where I must do a thing because of how you feel. Once I submit myself to that one time, I will do it continuously over and over and over again because we just created a norm. So when I detach myself from how you feel, the minute that you put it out there, I take a step back, not physically, but I'm just taking a step back because I need to create space between me thinking and you feeling. And when you share it with me, I become attached, but I do not become numb to it. I got it. I understand how you feel. That's generally how we should start that conversation, by the way. I understand how you feel. And then let's continue with the conversation. Because if you want me to stay with how you feel, then what you're saying is that we don't need any evidence of anything as it pertains to how you feel. So now I have to, I need to be mature enough to have a conversation with you that, sure, you can express how you feel, but now let's get to the why you feel that way. And once we get to the why, we get to the why, not me get to the why and say your feelings, right? But we get to the why. If we can get to the why, then I might be able to help you with how you feel. Not that it's my job to help you with how you feel, not that I am focused on helping you with how you feel. I'm focused on helping you to determine the why of how you feel so that you can fix how you feel and why you feel and so forth and so on. So I think that's the gateway to number one, managing emotional upheavals when it comes down to I feel that I don't own it. I thank you for sharing that with me, but I don't own any of it. Go ahead, sir.
So just because you feel upset doesn't mean that I'm the cause of you feeling upset.
No.
So if I say, hey, coach, you need to pick up your dirty drawers off the floor, right? And then you get upset. Why you tell me what to do? That ain't on me. You're supposed to clean up after yourself. That's you.
And
You
the
know what I mean?
evidence
If
was
you
the
feel
dirty
some type
underwear.
of way, the evidence is dirty underwear on the floor
Right,
or socks or whatever it is you left laying on the floor.
right.
Yeah. So when I say, hey, look, we have been lacking in this area in the house, you need to step it up some. If you feel attacked or feel a certain type of way, that's not on me. That's on you. That's how you felt. All I'm
Absolutely.
saying is that we need to step it up some. Why are you feeling the type of way? So I get that.
Yeah.
I wanted to just kind of talk that out a little bit in my
No, no,
head.
no, you're good.
Off, yeah.
And then when, like you said, when I asked, why do you feel that type of way? Now you have to produce evidence
Yeah.
that gave you the reason to feel that way. Well, you didn't have to
Hmm.
say it that way. Well, how would you have preferred me to say it?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's almost comical. It's not funny,
Hmm.
but it's almost
Yeah.
comical when you start going down this conversation trail. Some of the
Yeah.
responses that you get, because some of the responses that you get sounds like your kid, or
Yeah.
sounds like you did when you was a kid. That's the
Yeah.
evidence of who you're dealing with. I'm not dealing with you. I'm dealing with the child in you. And
Hmm.
sometimes I'm that person that say, I don't want to talk to your child right now. I need to talk to
Hmm.
the adult.
That's good. Let me write that down.
Don't do that. I told him not to do it. But see, but sometimes,
That's a
depending upon,
gold nugget. I ain't have time to hit the button.
but listen, and sometimes some people need that jar. I'm like, oh, I'm acting out of character because it's easy to revert back to what you know, and you don't even realize you've done it. So one quick mental joke, a defibrillator, like, oh, okay, I see what you did there. I got you. Okay, and that'll work.
Where we at, man? We on true
We
false
got
yet?
we got the last question,
Oh,
which
we
is
got one more.
easy.
Ooh.
In what ways can cultivating long-term vision and perspective enable us to thrive amid emotional turmoil? I'll throw it out real quick.
All
It's
right.
called, it's called focus.
Ooh, focus. What you mean?
That's it. Refocus on the purpose as opposed to the problem. A lot of time, the reason why the turmoil exists is because we focus on the problem. Get back to the purpose and see if the problem is in relation to the purpose. If the problem is not in relation to the actual vision or the purpose and so forth and so on, then is it really a problem or are we making it a problem?
Yeah, I get that, and I think it also gives us a. I'll keep mine short too. I think it gives us a bigger picture, right? So when you look at terms in long term, like with the military, we have 3 months, 6 months, 18 months. We already knew was deploying. So it gives us a better picture. And when you have a bigger picture, you can just see more details. So
Yep.
when you have more details, it allows us give you more perspective, and then it helps you navigate more. If I can only see this much of the map, you know what I mean. I'm trying to get from North Carolina to New York. right? But I can only see from North Carolina to Virginia. I can only do part of my route. So
Hmm.
if I can see the whole map in its entirety from North Carolina all the way up to Maine, then I can easily plan my route because
Right.
I can see the bigger picture and you can avoid issues and stuff like that. So yeah.
Absolutely. And to your point, if we did planning the right way, remember when we did the long term planning, we actually
Mhm.
planned for, you know, what do you call it? Obstacles. We
Obstacles,
planned
mhm,
for obstacles.
scenarios.
Right.
Yep. What else?
I think I
Yep.
said objects previously, but it's obstacles. Right.
Yeah.
So we plan for obstacles. So when these obstacles
Objects
present,
too.
there you go.
Yeah,
So we
IDF.
planned for them. So when they showed up, we actually have a plan for it. So if
Mhm.
we are in emotional turmoil, are we in emotional turmoil because of the plan, or are we just making this up because we don't feel comfortable about something else? So that's kind of like the point I'm saying. Like if we focus on the vision and the vision already has the goal, the process, the goal accomplishment, and then you also have the process to maneuver or navigate obstacles. What's the emotional turmoil? Might be some stress or something of that nature. Go take a nap. True,
Okay.
false. Emotionally resilient individuals never experience strong negative emotions, which is why they are able to handle stress effectively.
I'm going to say false. Reason why says never. I think the reason why these people are emotionally resilient is because they have experienced these things. They've experienced and then they've learned how to overcome these negative emotions. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That word "never" is a key part there. Okay, so if you answered false, you're in the house. Okay, true or false? Cognitive reframing involves changing the way we perceive a situation to alter our emotional response, which can significantly enhance emotional resilience.
According to the show, this answer would be true.
I love the 5 second countdown. I see what you did there.
Yeah. You see, I
Yeah.
got calluses too.
No, man, you were doing work today. So yeah, absolutely. This is definitely a true answer. So good, good,
Yeah.
good. All right, last true false. Healthy detachment requires completely shutting off our emotions to prevent ourselves from becoming overwhelmed during emotional upheavals. True or false?
Mm. False. I'm
Absolutely.
gonna say false
Absolutely.
because it says healthy detachment requires completely shut off.
Yeah. And even with that, the issue here is shutting off our emotions. No part of
Mhm.
detachment involves us shutting off our
Yeah.
emotions.
Yep.
Right. So very good. Okay, so let's do some scenarios real quick, and then we're going to call it a day because
Okay.
this is all about how to become emotionally unshakable. So the situation is Alex and Jamie have been in a relationship for 3 years. Recently, they've been experiencing increasing tension and frequent arguments. Alex feels overwhelmed by the emotional upheavals and wants to address the issues constructively. Alex recalls a recent discussion on becoming emotionally unshakable and decides to apply these principles to navigate their relationship challenges and improve their connection with Jamie. Question: what is the first step Alex should take to manage their emotional responses to the arguments with Jamie? A. Ignore their emotions and focus solely on finding a solution to the argument. B. Identify and acknowledge their emotional triggers during the conflicts. C. Blame Jamie for causing the arguments. D. Immediately suggest a break without addressing the emotional aspect.
Um, give the chat a couple of seconds to respond, and then my answer is C. Blame Jamie for causing the arguments. No, I'm just playing.
If you didn't, I was going to do it.
But that's what people do.
Right.
It's like it's because when you blame somebody, then you take all the responsibility off of yourself. You know, it's Jamie's fault why we're doing this. But to the answer to this, would be B. Identify and acknowledge their emotional triggers during the conflict.
I like it. I like it. I
That's
agree. I agree with B. Just so
yes.
you know.
However,
However, in some cases, D might be an answer as well.
absolutely.
Because if the tension is way too high, you
Mhm.
might need to take a break without addressing anything and then come back. Right now, during that break, you can do B. You can identify and acknowledge your emotional trigger during the conflict, and then when you come back to the conversation, then you guys can start talking through rationally. But definitely the answer is B. So you're not wrong if you answer B, and I will also say you're not wrong if you answer D without B, but B is the better answer. There we go.
I don't know how to do D. Coach, please let me know. How do I immediately suggest a break without addressing the emotional aspect? So things have gotten to this level. We're up here. Let's say for this scenario, it's Garfield and Shell.
Right.
Hey Shell. And it's time we up here. We're up here. Now we don't get up here, but I'm just saying we're up here. And now it's time to take a break. So how can I suggest a break without addressing the emotional aspect of it?
Check my pulse. Right. Check my heart rate. See if I'm sweating. See if I'm breathing heavy and I'm stuttering. And then just say, hey, you know what? I'm getting a little worked up right now. And I don't want to say anything that I'm going to regret or that becomes highly offensive to you. So is it okay that we take a 10-minute break and then come right back to the spot so we can pick up where we left off at? I don't see anybody saying no to that. But if they do, pack a bag. I'm just saying, pack a bag and leave, man. You got to go right now.
I used to say no. We're gonna deal with this stuff now. That used to be me, just being transparent. I want to deal with everything right now.
Yeah.
And that's why I brought that up there because I know there are a lot of people who believe that as soon as once we get in a disagreement, and let's say the argument starts, some people do not believe that they can take a break until there's a resolution to the problem. So
Mhm.
that's why I said that.
Great question, though. I like it. I like it. All right. Moving
Only
on
had
to.
one scenario?
No, she just brought it back
We
full
did
screen
too.
so everybody can see
Oh.
us. Okay. Moving on to the next. Is this. There we go. Okay. Question. Same scenario. How can Alex use cognitive reframing to alter their perspective on relationship issues? A. View the conflicts as opportunity for both partners to grow and learn together. B. Consider the argument as normal occurrences in every relationship. C. Think of the conflicts as tests of their emotional resilience and problem solving. And D. Assume that arguments will inevitably lead to the end of the relationship.
See, this it's two of them, right?
I don't know.
All right, so I'm saying for me,
Okay.
so I do my answer. I think the chat had a couple of seconds to answer. Is A, view the conflicts as opportunities for both partners to grow and learn together. However, though, the grow and learn together thing. You know what I mean? Sometimes we have things and sometimes she need to work on some stuff and sometimes I need to work on some stuff separately. You know what I mean? So that's my extra 2 cents to that part.
Mhm.
Now, the other one, B, not necessarily considerate, but let's be honest. In most relationships, well, I can't even say that. I can only speak for mine. We don't do no bunch of arguing.
Yeah.
So mm. All right, so I ain't gonna touch that one. All right, so when looking at C, I think this is there too, right? So let's think about this. So anytime that I believe that anything that I'm working on, that I'm growing at some point I have to be tested in that area to see if the growth has been made,
Hmm.
right? So I do think that it is A, but I also can understand why somebody, especially um someone who may think that the test has to come, would actually choose C as well.
This
That's
guy,
you?
that's me.
Yeah.
That's me.
Mhm. Yeah.
Remember we were talking about, I think it was obstacles, where we
Yeah.
said, I think, yeah, it was, I think it was obstacles. When we said obstacles are a great opportunity for growth,
Yeah.
so are arguments.
Yeah. Because you get to learn, you get to test. When you have the argument, you get to know, has she been working it, has she growing in this area, or is she still doing the same thing? Is
Mhm.
he growing in this area, or is he still doing the same thing? Every time we argument, she's still doing this, he's still doing this. Y'all ain't grown. Y'all still
Absolutely.
doing the same things. So yeah.
Absolutely. Now, don't get
It
it.
is.
Don't get me wrong. The clear number one answer is A, uh,
Mhm.
but C is definitely running in close second.
Yeah.
We got two more. You want to do another one before we call it? Because we're getting
Man,
close.
let's do two more.
Okay, let's do two more then. What strategies can Alex employ to maintain their emotional resilience throughout this stressful period in the relationship? A, practice mindfulness techniques to stay grounded during arguments. B, avoid discussing the issues with Jamie to prevent further stress. C, reframe the arguments in a positive light. And D, rely solely on their own perspective without seeking Jamie's input.
I mean, it's more than one on here. You know, I would say practice mindfulness techniques to stay grounded. However, comma, that's not what everybody doesn't do mindfulness, and everybody it doesn't work for everybody. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I like this as being the answer. And also I think that sometimes avoiding discussing certain issues to prevent further stress. I think depending on what the issue is. You know
Mm,
what I mean? So I think sometimes this is important. Let's say, for instance, somebody um does steps out on the side of the marriage, and then we talk about it, and months go by, and everything is good. I don't think that that's something that you gotta avoid discussion. You can't keep bringing that stuff up. It's gonna
yeah.
cause further stress. I think reframing the arguments in a positive light is good too. So I'm kind of like I think A is the answer, but I think there's some validity to B, to Bravo and Charlie as well. But I
Mm.
am now that I gave out all these different answers or whatever, or pieces of the answers, I want to hear what you think.
So I think we are in total agreement that D is obviously wrong. That's
Yes.
what I think.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm agreeing with you, but I'm agreeing with you in a
What?
different. I'm
What
agreeing with
if
you in a different light.
okay.
C is the clear answer.
Okay.
Reframe the arguments in a positive light, right?
Mhm.
Because the notion is what strategies, and that's the giveaway plural, can Alex employ to
Oh, okay.
maintain
Got
their
it.
emotional resilience throughout this stressful period? So reframing arguments in a positive light. I start there. And so, because I start there, one of the things that I do is I practice resilience. I practice mindfulness techniques to stay grounded as I am doing that, right? Because remember, this is where arguments become opportunities. Now, do I avoid discussing the issues with Jamie to prevent further stress? It all depends. Does that
Issue.
particular topic trigger Jamie, right? And then if it does trigger Jamie, can we talk about addressing her triggers? Because if we're in a relationship together, your triggers are my triggers now. That's just what it is. If you
That's
don't believe
true.
it, if you don't believe it is, you're only kidding yourself. You
Yep.
can be devoid if you want to, but it's going to create a void. So if you have this trigger, let's discuss this trigger. You're trying to write that down, aren't you?
Yep.
I see you searching. um, if you have a trigger, let's discuss the trigger and why the trigger exists so that we can have better conversation in the future. Because I don't believe in a relationship there should be anything that we can't talk about. And if we can't talk about a thing, that is more of that shines more of a spotlight on the relationship as a whole. I don't care if a person stepped outside the relationship or not. The reason why we can't talk about it is probably because of what happened before the person stepped outside on a relationship. We don't want to talk about the entirety of it. We only want to talk about one part of it. That's part of the problem. So anyway, that's just my take on it.
Yeah. Good take.
Last question. In what way can developing a long term vision help Alex handle the current relationship turmoil more effectively? A, by keeping them focused on the ultimate goal of a healthy and supportive relationship. B, by reminding them that the current conflicts are temporary setbacks. C, by making them disregard the immediate emotional pain and focus on future happiness. D, by motivating them to push Jamie harder without considering Jamie's emotional state.
Um, A, by keeping them focused on the ultimate goal of healthy and supportive relationships. That's my final answer.
That's your final answer.
That's my final answer with nothing else.
Okay. So for me, um, I think it's A and B, right? I definitely say A is the hardcore answer. But
Mhm.
if we can do A, then B becomes available.
Why do
If
we need to do B? Why do we need to do B? Because I was looking at that hard. I was looking at that. I'm just like, yeah. But then I'm just like, well, some people think that when you remind somebody something that you're you're not considering their maturity level, right? You don't need to remind me. I'm grown. So I know
the
that
mature
some
version of you
people,
speaking,
adults, don't like to be reminded.
but that's the issue. I think the adults that don't like to be reminded,
Mhm.
they're not adulting.
Mm.
I'm just listen. I'm 50 years old. I need you to remind me some things.
Yeah.
You know by fact. I forget sometimes.
Yeah.
That's why I like the fact he keep talking about writing stuff down because I
Mhm.
need to write stuff down. So for an adult who don't like to be reminded, they're not adulting. They're acting like a child. So just by virtue of them saying that, it's like, are
Mhm.
you kidding me right now? Are we
Yeah.
really having this version of the conversation? So I think it's necessary, right? It's kind of like accountability partners in a relationship. Sometimes you got to remind your accountability partner that, hey, I know we're remodeling this house. I know we got all the banging, but this is temporary. When this is all said and done with, the house is going to be exactly like we planned.
I would say you ain't gonna get any pushback from me
Amen. That's what I'm talking about.
at
Oh,
all.
all right. Listen, I think this was a great conversation, but
Oh
as
man.
always, when it comes down to these conversations, we got to give you that actionable advice. Hey, man, I kind of put you out there most of the show, so I'm a,
You gonna
I'm a,
roll first?
I'm a roll first, man. I'm a roll
All right.
first. Listen, I want to remind everybody about how your emotions work. Starts here first, then it works its way down to here, then it comes out to here. So I want you over the next, and you know what? There should not be a time limit set on this. This is a repetitive thing that you can constantly do in every moment. But think about the thing that triggers you. Like you can sit here now, after the show and you can think about it. You can monitor yourself as you go about your day to day life. But identify the thing that triggers you, isolate that thing, right? And then after you isolate it, why does that thing trigger you? Where did it come from? Practice reframing that thing so that when it shows up again, it doesn't trigger you. I don't like gray water bottles. Okay, great. Why does this gray water bottle bother you? I don't know. Like it got white on it. Should have been white. Okay, but is it possible that this is not gray? That this could be viewed as like a concrete color? And so just find. I know that was kind of that was kind of lame. I got it. But find a way to reframe the thing in your mind so you can view it in a positive light. That's the goal. Once you do it, then put it to the test. Don't go out there looking to get triggered, but see if it works. See if that thing triggers you moving forward. I think if you do that incrementally, constantly throughout time, you'll find that less things trigger you. And that is my actual advice.
I'm gonna start off by saying that life is an emotional roller coaster. And when you're trying to cultivate resilience, it's not about avoiding emotions, but more so learning how to navigate them with grace. When I think when you embrace, something like mindfulness or having a long term perspective about things, I think in essence, we empower ourselves to weather some of these storms, while also staying and grounded on our journey towards um, growth and ultimately fulfillment in life. And I think, everybody does not do mindfulness. Um, However, I have heard so many people who benefit from it. When I was practicing it like hardcore, I saw great benefits in it. So what I'm going to do for the next 7 days and what I'm going to my actionable advice would be to do the same thing. For the next 7 days, wherever you are in your mindfulness journey, do that. So if right now all you do is meditate or spend 15 minutes, then just do that for the next 7 days. Do it consistently for the next 7 days. If you're not there, then spend the next 7 days learning about mindfulness and maybe even practicing it and see if that is something that works for you. I don't necessarily believe that mindfulness is for everybody. I think it can be beneficial to most people, but I also believe that nothing is for everybody. And there are some people on here that may be listening, or some people it may not work for. That may just not be their thing. So that's what I have. That's my actual advice for the next 7 days. Learn a little bit more about mindfulness, whether you're actively involved in active mindfulness or whether you're not actively involved with mindfulness, and just to see if it may be something that may work for you. And that's my actual advice.
I love it. I love it. Listen, this has been an amazing conversation. I pray that that everybody got something out of it. I know I did. I enjoyed talking with my brother in the panels. I mean the chat during this conversation. Um, and I hope that this helps. I hope that this allows us to regulate our emotions even more and get to the point to where our emotions don't drive the train of our life. Right? That's not how it's supposed to be. Your emotions is not supposed to be the authority of you. And if that is how you're moving and behaving, just pay close attention. Pay close attention to what you're doing. Pay close attention to what everything outside of you is telling you to do. If everything outside of you is telling you to express yourself and be open and be, that's not that's not how it's supposed to be, right? Go back, do a lot. Now, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. I'm not speaking against it. If that's what you really want, then by all means do that. But for everybody else who is trying to get their life in alignment so that they can experience the best version of their life, then do some of these things that you heard throughout this conversation. So
That's
that's
it, man.
yeah. So that said, on behalf of my brother and on behalf of the people who are constantly with us every time that we view as a part of this platform, listen, we just pray the best like we just pray that you experience the best version of life. And just listen, let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else. See you next time.